Hello, everyone. My name is Mandeep Grewal. As a student in Master of Public Health, I proposed a solution to prevent road fatalities and injuries in British Columbia. So, in this presentation, we will begin by looking at the background information on why road safety is a public health issue, then the contributing factors of deaths and injuries on roads. I will introduce you to the Vision Zero policy and the current approach by the government of BC. Then we will look at my proposed solution and its alternatives. Then we will analyze each of those strategies more closely. And lastly, we will look at the limitations of this project and then close by concluding and remarks with my final recommendations. So let's begin. Canada is a developed country with life expectancy of around 82 years. However, in 2019, accidents and unintentional injuries were reported to be the leading cause of deaths for people aging 15 to 44 years old. And it is important to recognize that these age groups are the critical part of economy to any country, and they are the most productive populations. Then, if we look at the World Health Organization's data, Canada was ranked at the 27th place as of now for global road safety rankings. In BC, particularly, we're expecting to see a population growth by 2041. The number will reach to 6.5 million, and not to mention that every year we have 20 million of visitors. So we can imagine that there is certainly going to be an increased demand for a better infrastructure and road system. Now let's also look at the healthcare costs associated to transport injuries in 2019. So in that year alone, it was $526.7 million of cost, which roughly translates to $60,000 per hour. As you can already see how huge the burden is for the province of BC. Based on the data from Ministry of Transportation and Ministry of Public Safety, we can see back in 2010 there were 8 people out of 100,000 population dying because of these road accidents, and there were 461 people having injuries out of 100,000 population. Now, in 2019, these numbers have been reduced to 5 deaths out of 100,000 population and 316 injuries out of 100,000 population. There is a downward trend seen in the last decade, but still there is much more work that needs to be done. If we look at the contributing factors to these people dying on roads, then you will notice in the last decade, the 3 most common reasons for people dying on our roads back in 2010 were the same as of now. And those were distracted driving, impairment, and speeding. Now, coming to the Vision Zero policy, this policy was actually introduced by Sweden back in 1990, and their goal was basically to have zero deaths due to mobility. And Sweden was the first country to appreciate and recognize the human rights and demand justice because they changed the paradigm of thinking and proposed that there is a shared responsibility between road designers and road users. So they changed this thinking of having to look twice before we cross the street to think twice before we build the street. As per the Vision Zero's philosophy, in every situation a person might fail because humans make error, but a system should not. The government of BC has been also committed to the Vision Zero principle, and in the last decade, they have successfully reduced the numbers of fatalities and injuries by a significant amount. Back in 2010, they had created amendments in Motor Vehicle Act, which resulted criminalization of distracted driving and penalized the um, high risk behaviors, which has helped create roads safer for everyone. But still, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And my proposed solution is that we need a widespread and efficient public transit, including bus or rail, as a safer alternative for transportation. The alternative is the installation of average speed camera system on roadways with speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour or higher. And we will be evaluating both of these solutions by looking at the epidemiology, legal system, economics, and ethics. Now, some of you might be wondering why we need to take all these big steps. Why not just leave the current road system as it is and continue focusing on road users' behavior? Because ultimately, it is the responsibility of a road user to be aware of the risks associated with transportation, and it is their responsibility to obey the Motor Vehicle Act and other road safety laws. You might also argue that BC road safety strategy is expected to reduce the road fatalities even in future because as per their data and the downward trend seen, we will have reached the 50% reduction in fatalities and road injuries by year 2030. And of course, maintaining this status quo will not demand increased budgeting. However, let me remind you that the goal of Vision Zero is not going to be achieved by these numbers, and we must not stop. It is our shared responsibility between the road users and the road designers to create a system with which is more efficient and effective. So now let's look at the public transit as a safer alternative. Railway is actually well recognized as a safe mode of transportation, and it is both equitable and time saving. TransLink is actually already noticing this increased demand in their service in Langley, and they're planning to extend the Surrey SkyTrain network, but I believe it should be extended up to Abbotsford. And the benefits of doing this will be increase in revenue collection, reduced gas consumption, reduced household expenses, riders becoming more productive because they can use their time to read, write, or relax, creation of more jobs for local population in the transit agencies and organizations, and of course, the reduced air pollution from vehicular use. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have arguments like BC Transit bus service already exists from Chilliwack and Abbotsford to Vancouver via connection through Langley. However, we should be careful about their schedule and routes if there are any inconveniences because all of these bus services are actually running through a slower speed highway and they are using single lane roadways where the traffic is already really bad. And we should be thinking to ourselves if it is really time saving or time consuming. Now, TransLink service already exists from Mission to Vancouver, which is northern part of the Fraser Valley, Fraser River. And again, we should be thinking about any schedule or location inconvenience associated to these services. Of course, if we don't do the public transportation as an alternative solution, we will not have any short term requirements for budgeting or funding. As an alternative for the installation of average speed camera system, this has actually been done widely in another developed country, United Kingdom, where over 4 years after installation, they had seen 42% reduction in road-related fatalities, and this is a very significant amount of reduction. It shows us the effectivity of this strategy, and it's it's a great evidence. Now, BC has already been using the technology. However, those traditional spot speeding systems have been reported to be accused of causing more accidents because drivers tend to brake heavily and suddenly and then accelerate when they see these speed cameras. On the other side, we can argue that it is the responsibility of the driver to follow the road safety laws for legal speed limits, and then there will be no additional budgeting needed for installation of such cameras. Lastly, the limitations of this project is the biggest one being the collaboration between Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, TransLink, and Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. So all of these organizations will not only have to collaborate, but they will have to actively participate towards road safety. And of course, the funding and budgeting is another challenge. Finally, I will conclude by saying that widespread rail infrastructure with increased service from Mission and other northern cities of Fraser River, as well as Chilliwack and other southern cities of Fraser River, will be a safer mode of transportation to Vancouver. It will have immediate effects of life saving, health benefits, healthcare cost reduction benefits at a society level, job creation, increased productivity, and long term benefits of achieving this Vision Zero sooner and reduce road congestion, less manual labor for law enforcement, high revenue collection, individual household cost benefits, and lastly, the environmental benefits. So that is my presentation. Thank you for listening, and here's my references.